made you get into music in the first place, and what or is your main inspiration to keep following your passion for music?
I got into music because my dad played the trumpet in high school, and we had it in the house. So I naturally just was curious, and I picked it up and started playing. I started band in 4th grade, and the trumpet and generally speaking music came pretty easy to me. I understood it. I didn't really struggle. As far as what's been my inspiration, I would have to say it's always been about the joy of performing live music, whether in a large orchestra or a band, chamber group, and I guess this is more of something my inspiration now is different than when I was a kid. I just liked playing. It was fun. But as a professional for the last 5 years or so, I think it's been always about the music and the audience and just seeing how live music can bring joy to people and just conveying emotion to folks, whether it's a church service or a concert or a club gig, whatever it is. People don't realize how much live music lifts them up until they're there. And you get comments like, oh, it's so great to have this at our church or this at this concert. I wasn't going to come, but I'm just so happy I did. You just getting that feedback from an audience keeps me inspired to wanting to, represent the composer and the music the best way I can.
So, what part of the music industry or / music world would you do you take interest in most, and why?
I take interest in a ton of styles of music, like a lot of different things. My chamber music has kind of become my first love, like brass quintet playing, and solo playing in some ways with organ and trumpet, piano and trumpet. The versatility of the ensemble. I mean, you can play everything from Renaissance literature, classical literature, all the way through, Dixie and jazz, traditional jazz and pop music, and everything's been arranged for that idiom. So I get to participate in a lot of versatile genres. I also love the orchestra music. I mean, I play and sub in. I play as an extra with a lot of orchestras around Texas, and I really think that the compositions and the composers of the orchestral literature are just the best that's ever been. I love the literature. So those are two very, very important aspects of...
Okay. In what ways is being on the road in the military band different than most other artists?
When you go on tour with, say, a normal music ensemble, it's about that music ensemble. It's about you playing music that you love for an audience that you hope loves you back. And in the end, you hope they love you so much that they're going to pay you. Or somebody's going to pay you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The difference between a military career and being in a military band is it's not about that. Like, you do not represent yourself solely. Yes, my playing and my musicianship was on stage, and my colleagues, and we took that very seriously. But what you're doing there is so much bigger than the music. You represent the Air Force, you represent the military to every single person in that audience. You are the face of the United States military at that moment, and you're an ambassador. Like I said, for something bigger than yourself. It's bigger than the band. It's bigger than the music. So that's the difference. It's being an ambassador and being held to a higher standard as a professional and displaying that professionalism, so your audience has a great sense of what their military is about, what the United States Air Force was about. So it's a big difference.
What are your favorite and least favorite aspects of being on tour?
My least favorite is eating junk food, because I delve into eating out and eating junk. When you're on the road, it's really hard to pack a cooler that lasts a long time. You can try to go to the grocery store, pack healthy foods, you can try to go eat healthy, but it costs twice as much to eat healthy as it does to eat, easy fast food or Subway even. It just gets old. So that's my least favorite part, is just finding good nutritious food without going, without paying too much for it, to be honest with you. My most favorite is when you're on the road performing. I love traveling. I love the camaraderie of the musicians I'm with, and I love the fact that it's just focused on music. Concerts every night. When you have to get on stage and deliver night after night after night after night, your musicianship goes to a higher level. It's the same music, yes, but you have to play it like the audience has to hear it like it's the first time. It's got to be authentic in some way and raw. So you can't get stale, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, because I enjoy myself no matter what on stage. But in college and generally speaking, if you're a freelancer, you tend to play a gig and it's done. You play the concert, it's done. You don't get. Imagine you got an opportunity to play a jazz concert, and you played it, and you're like, man, that was great, but I could have done better. Well, but you don't get a second chance the next day to do a concert. Well, when you're on the road, it's all about the music. It's all about improving and playing tighter as a band and playing just better and better. And you get that opportunity to get a second chance the next night, and a third chance, and a fourth chance. And that's when I think music goes from good to great, is when you get the opportunity to go on tour with it.
Right. If you could change one thing about the music industry, what would it be, and why would you change it?
I cannot speak as an expert on the music industry, on the entire industry. I mean, I have my little niche of what I do. But as a musician, I would try to change, and I do try to do this. I would try to change sort of a that's what I'm looking for. I apologize. I would try to make sure musicians are prepared 100% all the time for the job they're supposed to be doing, and that they don't just come in, and as a freelance musician I've experienced this, they just play the notes and they're going to get paid because they played the notes. It's very frustrating. So I think that if I could change anything about the industry at large, it would be, you want to see the best musicians be the most successful musicians, and that's not always the case. And a tragedy, I think, in the pop industry today, and I'm not an expert in this, but a tragedy that I've read about is very few artists really read music. They're just great at what they do, but there's very few pop artists these days that are truly reading music notation, and I think that's a problem.
Right. So, do you think you have accomplished what you wanted to as a professional musician?
Some yes, some no. I'm 46 years old, so I'm in the middle of my career. I'm proud of what I've done and what I did for 21 years in the Air Force Band, but I still have goals. I want to record a solo CD or a brass quintet, a chamber ensemble CD. But most of all, I just want to be a better artist, a better player, and a better teacher. Just recently moved from being a military musician to more of a full-time teacher, and that keeps me inspired. Back to question number one, is teaching the next generation of musicians, music teachers, music producers, whatever it is. I enjoy that. But as far as my own personal goals, is to just be a really great teacher and clinician and an artist, and I want to continue to grow.
Okay. What things would you have done differently earlier in your career, and is there anything that you regret?
Earlier in my career, I would have studied more jazz improv. I did a lot of big band playing, a lot of commercial music, but I didn't study hardcore enough on the improv side of the house. Because I love being a true jazz musician. I love big band, but I also love just straight up chamber jazz kind of thing. I don't know what they call it these days, small group jazz.
Combo.
And that and jazz and composition, all that more seriously. It's hard to play catch up, but I can tell you that it was overwhelming as a student to learn orchestral literature and solo repertoire and all the classical stuff I had to do. I couldn't figure out how to do it all when I needed to. So I wished I'd tried harder though at the improv stuff. Still working on it today. And also I think I wished I'd taken in my career bigger chances, bigger risks. You know, I wished I'd sought out jobs that were probably what I thought at the time were way beyond my reach. And now I look back and I think I could have done that. I should have done that. I should have taken those chances more. My issue was I never felt perfect enough to take the big auditions. And as I've grown older and I've realized there's no such thing as perfect, which is why I tell my students, don't worry about perfection, just worry about high percentage. Make music and worry about the high percentage technique. You'll get there eventually, you know, and that is important for me. It's an important frame of mind, you know, to have that. So, I don't know if that's helpful.
So, in other words, you had wished you were more versatile when you were a bit younger?
I was always a versatile player. Don't get me wrong. I could always sit in a big band. I could sit in a rock band, an orchestra, a brass quintet, a solo wedding gig. Jazz improv is not just, that's a whole nother world. To be truly a great improviser takes incredible study of the greats, you know, Miles Davis, you know, and, you know, Dizzy Gillespie, and all the, you know, Clifford Brown, all the great trumpet players, just studying their solos, studying how they improvised. You can be a good jazz musician but not be able to improvise, you know, and I feel like I can sit in with any big band and do that. But improvising is a whole nother world. So yeah, I guess you call it versatility, but it's just adding to the arsenal of being of who I am as a player. I would love to be able to improvise more on a higher level.
What else do you think you would have done in music if it was not in the military?
Well, I've always had a private trumpet studio. Even with the military job, I probably would have had a larger trumpet studio, taught more. And I would have had a freelance career, which I've had even while I was in the military. I've always maintained a presence, whatever city I was living in. I had a career as an orchestral player, as a classical player, you know, and some big bands for sure. And so, if not in the military though, I would have taken a lot more orchestra auditions, and I would have loved to have auditioned and toured potentially with traveling, you know, going on tour with like musicals. And I probably would have pursued a doctorate, you know, the MA, eventually.
Okay. Has the constantly changing music industry affected your career in any way?
Depends on what you mean by the word change, because I mean I change all the time, but so much in the industry has not changed. I think, although I want to see greater excellence from musicians all the time, there still are always people going to sit in a practice room and be willing to become great. If you're speaking about the changing pop culture, you know, pop industry specifically, I really have no idea what needs or should change. But I think that, like I said before, the dwindling of people who really read music and speak the same language as musicians of a generation ago. I mean, you don't have to be able to read music to be a great musician, but a lot of composers who are writing hit songs today don't even read at all, and that's frustrating to me. The other changes I would have is it's backwards sometimes when they want the packaged musician all wrapped up and ready to go, and they want you to have a social media presence and have 10,000 followers before a record company will get behind you nowadays. Years ago, they just found talent, and then they made the star. It was all about the music first, and then we'll make you into a star. If you watch enough movies about it, I mean, I just know what I know from friends and from what I see from documentaries, but I'm no expert in that, so
What is your favorite style or genre of music, and why?
I don't have one favorite style, but I love so many genres and styles. You know, I love the orchestral genres from Baroque music to classical, and the great romantic and contemporary orchestral composers. A huge Gustav Mahler fan. But I also loved, of course, the classical composers are great. Bruckner. I love film scores. I mean, I'm not a person that gets jaded on the job. I enjoy whatever I'm playing as long as it's at a high level. And so, like I said, I love the orchestral classics. I love big band music. I'm a big fan of Duke Ellington, Basie, love Sinatra. And when it all comes down to it, I'm all about melody and groove. And I'll go back and listen to Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald any day of the week.
In your opinion, what do you think is the future of the music industry?
I think the future's great. From a traditional sense and from a standpoint of technology. I'm not sure how profitable it's going to be for live musicians, and that worries me. But my hopes are that with all the social media presence we have nowadays, think about in the last 10 years how many groups have been discovered and become famous because of either reality TV shows or social media. It's huge. It's like years ago, if you didn't get some big corporate person behind you, some executive in the music industry and record companies, you didn't have a chance. But now you got a chance to get it out there. YouTube,
Right.
Instagram, and all these things have helped people get discovered. That's a positive thing. I'm hoping that that social media and all that presence will, I hope it will translate into live music and a robust live music scene in the future. That means local musicians will get hired, and the arts are heartbeat in every city in America. And so I, of course, always want to see live music flourishing.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.